northern coast of Venezuela. Every U.S. ship and pilot on high alert. For the first time in years, Venezuelan Su-30 MK2 fighters, armed with Russian-made Kh-31 supersonic anti-ship missiles, lifted off in coordinated formations directly as the U.S. Navy's USS Gerald R Ford carrier strike group moved into the region. This wasn't a routine patrol. This was a deliberate flex, a show of force, timed to the exact moment the Ford CSG entered the Caribbean. And the most concerning part? Those Su-30s flew toward the coastline facing the U.S. Navy's operating area, the exact direction required for a Kh-31 strike profile. No missile was fired. No radar lock occurred. But the flight pattern alone was enough to trigger defensive counter-air launches from the U.S. carrier. Why this one flight matters. The Su-30 MK2 isn't stealthy. It isn't invisible. It isn't undefeatable. But it carries the Kh-31, and that missile is the problem. A Kh-31 fired from a Su-30 at 80 to 100 miles away can reach a U.S. warship in under a minute. It flies fast, it flies low, and it forces a ship into instant defensive mode. That's why the U.S. Navy treats every Su-30 launch toward the sea as a potential pre-attack scenario. So when multiple Su-30s took off, linked up with Venezuelan F-16s, and flew toward the coastline facing the Ford carrier strike group, the U.S. response was automatic. Super Hornets launched, Hawkeyes tracked, Aegis destroyers lit up the radar picture, electronic warfare suites activated. No shots fired, but all systems moved into the ladder of escalation. And that's why this feels urgent, because the Venezuelan Air Force is not behaving cautiously. They're behaving like they want to pressure the U.S. into reacting. What exactly did the Su-30s do? Clean timeline. Escalation. Stage 1. The USS Gerald R Ford strike group entered the Caribbean. This is the most advanced carrier on Earth. Emails launch system, upgraded radar network, FA-18 squadrons, Hawkeyes, and F-35 support from Puerto Rico. The second the Ford shows up, the region enters a different level of seriousness. Escalation Stage 2. Right as the Ford began operations, Venezuela scrambled Su-30s in coordinated pairs. They took off from Barcelona Air Base, one of Venezuela's only fully operational fighter hubs. This timing was, not accidentally, a message. Escalation Stage 3. The Su-30s flew parallel to the coastline, toward the general direction of the U.S. operating area. This is the critical detail. They didn't fly inland. They didn't fly training patterns. They didn't fly circles. They flew the optimal line required to maintain radar sweep and potential targeting geometry toward the sea. Escalation Stage 4. Venezuelan F-16s joined them. This almost never happens due to spare parts shortages. You only bring out your F-16s when you want the world to see the whole Air Force is up. Escalation Stage 5. The U.S. responded immediately. This part is exactly what the U.S. Navy trains for. Super Hornets launched. Hawkeyes extended radar coverage. Aegis destroyers shifted to a tighter defensive grid. Electronic warfare suites spun up. No aggression, no provocation, just disciplined, layered defense. Because a Kh-31 is one of the last missiles you want to see coming over the water. The Su-30 itself is not the real issue. The missile it carries is. The Kh-31, supersonic, sea-skimming, anti-ship 80 to 100 mile range, violently fast. If one is ever fired, U.S. ships have seconds to detect, classify, and intercept. That's why U.S. officers treat any Su-30 flying toward open water as a potential launch platform. And that's what happened here. The real reason this can escalate: misinterpretation. Venezuelan pilots can trigger a U.S. reaction without even meaning to. All it takes is one radar switch. If a Su-30 radar shifts from search to attack mode, even accidentally, U.S. forces interpret that as the first step of a Kh-31 launch sequence. And per U.S. carrier defense doctrine, if a missile might be coming, you neutralize the jet, not the missile. This is why the Su-30s stayed just inside the safe interpretation zone along their coastline. They got close enough to send a message, but not close enough to trigger a U.S. preemptive response. That fine line is what makes this so tense. One wrong turn, one wrong radar spike, one overconfident flyby, and this entire situation changes instantly. Why U.S. analysts are alarmed. This isn't normal Venezuelan behavior. Now, here's what happens next, and why the US is moving heavy bombers. The Su-30 coastal run was the single closest call so far. But it wasn't the only warning sign, because on a completely separate track, while the Su-30s were posturing off Venezuela's northern coastline, the United States launched one of its clearest signals yet. Two B-52 Stratofortress bombers started heading south, not armed for a show, armed for a message. And here's the verified timeline, in simple terms. 1. The B-52s lifted off from Louisiana. 2 aircraft, one with a call sign, TIMEX-43. One flying with no call sign at all. When a B-52 flies dark, that's not an accident. 2. Both aircraft headed straight for southern Florida. This is the staging route used anytime bombers are prepping for a Caribbean patrol, an Allied reassurance flight, or a strike package. 3. KC-135 and KC-10 tankers were already in place. You don't move refuelers unless you know you'll need them. 4. The B-52s avoided Cuban airspace, exactly as expected. They loop around the island the same way every US bomber mission does. 5. Next waypoint, Puerto Rico. This is where American aircraft stay within US-controlled air defense range, using the island as a safe corridor for long-range operations. This is all normal bomber procedure, but the timing, again, is what stands out. Bombers heading south at the same moment Su-30s are flying naval strike profiles creates one clear message. The US wants Venezuela to know, if things go too hot, we're already in motion. The target package, and why it matters now. This is the part most people don't understand. The B-52s don't need to drop bombs. They just need to show up with the right target package. And here are the targets that have already been discussed publicly by credible defense analysts. Target 1. Su-30 bases, Barcelona Air Base. The only Su-30 base with a clean runway visible, Su-30 airframes, operational, hangars, and proximity to the coast. From this base, Su-30s can launch directly toward the sea with KH-31s, which is exactly why it appears near the top of US operational planning. Manuel Rios Air Base. Runway in poor condition, vegetation encroaching, almost unusable for modern jets. But it has ammunition storage and hardened shelters. Targets that B-52 standoff missiles can hit early if needed. Target 2. Iranian drone port, La Guaira Port. Confirmed by multiple intelligence reports as a receiving point for Shahed drones, missile parts, Iranian-supplied systems. This port is a high-priority target because it multiplies Venezuela's ability to harass US ships or overwhelm defenses. Target 3. Command and control nodes. This includes Maduro's Central Command Compound, communications hubs, air defense coordination nodes. Striking these removes Venezuela's ability to coordinate jet launches or missile tracking. Target 4. Select oil targets. Not the whole oil industry, just specific refinery or export nodes to limit Maduro's operational fuel supply. Not civilian infrastructure, purely military logistics. The US, weapons in position. This is where the picture gets very clear. USS Gerald R Ford Carrier Strike Group, FA-18EF Super Hornets for air defense, E-2D Hawkeyes for radar, Aegis destroyers with SM-2 and SM-6 interceptors, Tomahawk cruise missiles, electronic warfare suites. This group alone can neutralize most Venezuelan air operations. F-22 Raptors. Launched from Florida, positioned behind the B-52s to secure the airspace. These aircraft have unmatched radar reach, supercruise, instantaneous kill options. If Su-30s left the coastline, the Raptors would meet them first. F-35s. Positioned in front of the B-52s, their job is simple: detect everything, classify everything, strike if ordered. They form the invisible wall around US bombers. B-52 loadout. This is where the strategic power becomes real. The B-52s can carry AGM-86, ALCM 1,000-pound warhead, standoff range, hard for enemy radar to detect, perfect for command centers and ports. AGM-158 JASSM, stealthy precision, ideal for hardened bunkers or Su-30 hangars. JDAMs, for close targets but less likely due to bomber vulnerability. The United States is not preparing for a military conflict, but it is preparing to stop one, And here's the part every viewer needs to understand. The Su-30K H-31 threat is real. The missile exists. The aircraft can carry it. The flight path was correct. The US saw it. And the Navy reacted exactly as trained. That's the significance. No what-ifs, no guessing, just physics, radar, and doctrine. One misread radar pulse, one wrong altitude change, one overconfident Su-30 pilot, and the situation can flip instantly.